Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara. We talk about TV shows here. The year is 2022. The name of the show is Babylon 5. This is season 4, episode 17. It's called The Face of the Enemy. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. And some big things, but down here we got some pretty specific answers as to Garibaldi's condition and what he's been going through all season. It does not feel like 17 episodes in, to be honest. I feel like I'm like maybe halfway through the season rather than 17. But yeah, it's Garibaldi's condition. The Bester reveal. We get him acting out the plan. He's captured Sheridan's father off camera. We don't see him, but you know the plan's happened, and he puts a call into Sheridan, telling him about his father. Although he does not say that he's the one who's got him. Of course, he claims that Clark's people have done this, and he's got a connection, but the connection will only meet with them alone. So Sheridan's sort of lured in on his own, and everyone's telling them this seems a bit fishy. But he's like, it's my father. What am I supposed to do? Like, I have to do this. Everyone's kind of not trusting of this information, and that is very much our main plot. Is that he goes and we get. So he goes to meet Garibaldi at this bar on Mars, and it's a very stylized fight sequence. We get where Garibaldi.
It feels very modern.
Yeah, like Garibaldi plays along for a little bit, but then he slaps him with like a sedative of some kind. So he's kind of getting woozy, but he still tries to fight, and a lot of people in the bar turn it to work for Edgars. So we get this like weird, like almost trance scene of like flashing lights as he's trying to fight. And the part that really stuck out to me is that every time it cut back to Garibaldi and the light would be flashing on his face, every time it flashed and came back, it would cut to a different take or a different shot where he was looking in a different direction. So it had this really surreal quality to it.
Yeah, I enjoyed this scene a lot. I actually thought when they first entered the bar, I was like, oh, we're getting a little grunge music in Babylon 5. I don't think we've had grunge yet. And this is the 90s.
Yeah, it felt like a different mood. The whole thing had a vibe. I wouldn't say like everything in the fight scene worked for me. Like I wasn't so keen on the freeze frames every so often of Sheridan when he's getting beat up. I thought the freeze frames were a bit weird. But the flashing lights and the way it was shot otherwise, it was still very distinct and different from most of the show. And it did give it a vibe. It really gave it kind of this like it made it feel like a bigger scene than it was. I mean, it is a big scene. It's a big scene in the sense that they're capturing Sheridan. It is a big deal, but
plus all the betrayal of Garibaldi.
Yeah. So really good stuff. Do you know what? As someone with 3 cats, I know the look that Tara just had on her face as I heard a noise coming from the distance. Of like, that damn cat, it wasn't doing.
He really hates it when I do this.
So Sheridan's in like a cell, and we hear like the propaganda news reports later on talking about it, and the others find out. But we'll get to all that stuff later. I want to just stick with Garibaldi because this is the hook of the episode. This is the big thing. Is Garibaldi demands to know the full plan now, and Edgars tells him. And you know, I think we even speculated that it looked like he was making like a disease for telepaths rather than an antidote. Turns out he's doing both, and it's really this really dastardly thing that he's doing. So they've developed a virus that is airborne that will spread to all telepaths, but is harmless to everyone else, all the normals, the mundanes, as the telepaths call them.
I don't know if we've heard that before, but it's the first time I picked up on it.
Yeah, and Leah said it a few times, I think, in this episode, so it's definitely a thing now. But I was happy with normies. I thought that worked just fine. But
normies, it's what I always use.
But hey, so this will spread to everyone, but his dastardly plans, he doesn't necessarily just want to kill them all off. He's also got an antidote, but the antidote only works for 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, every telepath has to get a dose of the antidote or they'll die. And that means that they are now subservient to the normies. And as a result, they're essentially a slave race, because now the normal people have all the power, and this is, you know, it's horrendous. And Garibaldi does react like he's disgusted by it, but then kind of like eases into it as the conversation goes on. And you know, again, part of you I think is thinking, is this the conditioning kind of kicking in, or is this whatever. Like, obviously, we may actually get to the scene with Bester where Bester appears in front of, because Garibaldi, once he hears all this, he pulls out like a fake tooth that's got like a transmitter in it. He sent a signal to someone, and turns out, the whole point of this was for him to ultimately find out about this, because the telepath Psychor know that Edgars is up to something against them, but they don't really know what, so they have to find out, and this was kind of the whole point. And it explains how they got him, because it was the Shadows that had him. The Shadows wanted to try and turn him. They brought in some Psychor like associates to do it, but Bester got wind of it and like kind of took him for his own needs, and that's kind of where we ultimately get to everything that's happened this season. It does confirm that Garibaldi, there was some of them still sort of there to begin with, but over time, the more subliminal messages he got, the further he went down the rabbit hole, more and more this like perversion of Garibaldi took over, and the real ones just kind of trapped inside.
Bester says that, there wasn't any need to like alter too much of his personality. Instead, it enhanced like the feelings that was already there by making him more rebellious, more stern, and more stubborn, and just enhancing those, and more angry.
I think also aiming, because this idea that he questions authority, like aiming that at Sheridan, aiming his like certain beliefs in certain ways. But this idea that like the real Garibaldi is in there and is trying to get out, but is effectively trapped by this other personality that is taking hold over time.
It seems pretty lucky that Garibaldi was still hired by Edgars. Pretty lucky on the part of Psychor.
Well, I mean, not all of it seemed like a sort of well thought out plan, because he even says he wasn't expecting him to resign. That was actually just like a magical thing that was perfect for what needed to happen. It wasn't like he had like necessarily specific goals in mind. It was more just kind of nudging him to get him into sort of the right path here or there. But that was like something Bester said he didn't predict, and it was just it was like, oh, this is perfect. This is even better than I could have hoped for.
Yeah.
So, but I think what's fascinating to me about all this is that as he's describing this to him, and Garibaldi's like in a trance just listening to him because he's controlling him mentally, is the entire time thinking, this is actually so dastardly evil what he's done to Garibaldi, because now Garibaldi, everyone knows that he's the one who betrayed Sheridan. He has lost all of his credibility with everyone. Even if he somehow convinces them that this happened, which is a bit of maybe a stretch in the first place, like, there's always going to be this mistrust now. And Garibaldi has been used and violated in a way where, he never liked being scanned by, like, telepaths before. He was always dead set against it. He was always uncomfortable with it. Now he has been used as a puppet for months. This is awful. So when he eventually, like, becomes himself, because Bester's like, maybe I should just kill you, but I don't really need to. I'm not an evil person. I had a use for you, and now that use is done, I'm not. Yeah, there's no reason to, and no one's really going to believe you anyway if you try and tell them. So, yeah. I'll just.
Lita's on Mars, and I suspect that she will be his key for redemption.
She'll probably look in his mind and figure out, or see what happened to him and see some of these memories and sort of confirm some of it. But I do really like the ending of this scene, which is Bester, once he leaves, like, you're going to be yourself again. Like, for the first time this season, you're going to really be Garibaldi again. And he walks off the little transport and takes a couple of seconds, and then I was wondering here, I'm like, I wonder how he's going to play as an actor. I'm wondering how he's going to play this moment where he's finally him again, and he just starts screaming in anger, and it's just like this and I think this was probably the perfect way of doing it. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely certain like amazing actors who maybe could have done something else with this, but I think for Garibaldi that we know, him just screaming in anger in this like sort of way that he's just been used. And I do love that afterwards we hear from like Marcus and Ivanova, because he tells Ivanova Garibaldi's been calling Babylon 5, and Ivanova says, no, don't take the calls. And that at this point, because we've not, other than this one moment of him screaming, we've not had a scene of Garibaldi being himself yet, right? We've not really seen him what he's trying to do. So the idea that we just hear about it like offhand, like, we don't see it, we just hear that he's trying to call Babylon 5. He clearly wants to call and tell them everything that he's just found out, to tell them what's going on, to tell them where Sheridan is, to tell them why this all happened and that he wasn't in control. which is obviously a key theme of the season, because we got the keepers, the parasites of, that are also taking control of people. But this like key theme is there. But the fact that we just hear that offhand later just feels like so sad, because in that moment Ivana was like, I don't want to hear what he has to say. And Ed says if he arrives on the station, shoot him on sight. Like, don't detain him, don't arrest him. Shoot. And even Marcus is like, Ivanova, like, don't they shoot him?
He calls her Susan.
That's true. So he's serious. He's serious.
Yes. She doesn't take his head off for it, which I thought was a surprise. There's no way Bridge Boy could call her Susan.
Oh, no, not at all. I think it's because of the seriousness of the moment. Like, she understands why he's like appealing to her humanity by using their first name. Right. And then in return, instead of like pulling rank effectively, she's saying, no, on a personal level, I'm serious. Like, I'm serious. Like, we have an open airlock policy, and that policy that applies to Mr. Garibaldi. So, but when you see it, but that's the thing, when you see this scene, I think you feel bad for Garibaldi, because this is not his fault.
Yeah, it's not, but I mean, obviously they've seen is just the manipulated side of him, and it has gotten progressively worse and worse and worse, to the point where, he set up a meeting to where now he's captured. And he
kidnapped Sheridan's father as well, which is a pretty big betrayal of like trust and evil in the first place, never mind the end game of it all. So all of this is wonderful. It plays into these themes of like the truth and like the image that's put out there, the propaganda side, or the created side, or the reputation that is out there, versus the truth of who you really are, what your intentions really were. That's been a big theme this season, as well as the control and other forces controlling someone. So all this is at play, and the fact that it's worked so well, and Garibaldi is this victim of being this violated, put in this place, and I have to suspect that at this point he's going to try and rescue Sheridan, and this is going to be his big play. I assume, but I mean, we'll find out. But
I don't know exactly. I don't remember if like Edgars and stuff had connections to the resistance group that is on Mars, that Franklin and Lita are with at the moment.
I don't think so. I don't believe so.
Yeah. Okay. So he's probably not going to find Franklin and Lita first. Like he knows where Sheridan is, and he's going to go after him.
He may run into them.
They may also have the same plan to rescue him.
Yeah, they might literally bump into each other when they're both trying to rescue Sheridan.
It's not exactly a secret that they have Sheridan.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I'll be curious to see, because I suspect since they're on Mars together, they might run into him. And like you say, Alita is like the person who can like confirm. And I think just to go back into more of this telepath and like poisoning them effectively and controlling them. Obviously, this is also like super evil. It is malicious and inhumane to an absurd level. And obviously, he has these prejudices, these ideas. But I think what's so fascinating about it is when we see what Bestor's up to sometimes, and especially in this episode, Lita tells this story about when she tried to be a part
dark.
When she tried to be a part of Psycho, and she was like the apprentice, and it was after this first like thing that she decided, you know what, no, commercial work. I'm going to go do the commercial side. I don't want to be a part of the Psycho police squad with psychic Leslie Nielsen. I don't want to be a part of that because it's evil. And it turns out that when Psycho,
from the files of Psycho,
even when they're not supposed to, because obviously we know they've got all these laws, and Lita's very adamant about obeying those laws about not doing illegal scans and unwanted scans and things like that. Like Psycho, if they think they're at threat from someone, they will do it, and they will they're corrupt as shit, effectively is what we're saying here. But she tells this awful story of a telepath got murdered, and they just they scanned anyone who might have had a lead in deep scans, which she points out, a light scan, which they do normally when they're hired to do scans and they're given permission to do scans, is different from a deep scan. A deep scan can give someone a heart attack or a seizure or a stroke. It can really, it can have serious negative death effects.
There's a lot of fine print under the deep scan.
Yeah, and it's like, if they but when they get into this sort of position, they don't care about that, and they'll just do it anyway. And so I think what the point I'm trying to get to here is that this sounds horrific, it sounds awful, is that obviously what Edgars is doing is wrong, but the idea that he's worried about the threat that the telepaths possess is that there's some truth in it. Yeah, there is truth in it, because at least a portion of them in Psychor are doing awful things, and
it's like having kryptonite on hand just in case. Just in case the Kryptonians want to take over Earth.
Well, no, it's the opposite of that, because he's going to implement it just by default on every Kryptonian. So it's, I think was because that's one of the other things about the Lita and Franklin scene when she tells him all this, is that Franklin sort of reiterates a couple of times, like, when this is over with, Clark and the fight, like, we have to deal with Psychor, but we have to find a way to do it that is diplomatic. We have to find a way that solves these problems without conflict. And of course, the Edgars approach is he's going the villainous route of just like, no, we're just going to like treat every telepath as guilty. We're going to treat them, and I think the word Holocaust is even brought up at one point, and that is in many ways what it could be. But of course,
it's hard to justify genocide even to like people who are evil.
Yeah, of course. And I think what's interesting is that obviously Edgars is not an idiot. He sees a use for telepaths if they can be controlled. And of course the control is that, well, yeah, we've got the magic drug that if you don't take it, you'll die. So that keeps you under the foot forever.
Yep.
And Bester almost sounds impressed when he hears it. He's like, oh, I never imagined that. That's actually quite devious.
He sounds impressed, but also he does take it, I mean, obviously for his protection, but I don't know if maybe he can like still use it for other, like maybe he can alter it somehow and make it attack the normies or the mundanes.
Well, that's the thing, the telepaths, because they already have the advantage, they don't really need to like have,
I suppose that's true.
So and I think because they mentioned as well it's very contagious, because I thought for a second, oh, maybe he could like give it to one telepath that's acting out a line and then have control over another telepath, but he did mention it's very contagious, so that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, it's airborne. Maybe just shoot it into the sun.
Yeah, just be done with it. I did like the little detail though that he suspects that it probably comes from shadow tech, because we know shadows hate telepaths because they're a threat to them. So this was something that maybe like got into the black market after the war, and this is something that Edgars got his hands on because he's filthy rich.
Yeah, I mean, everything sounds horrible. Like almost both sides sound like they're. It sounds like everything's bad. Like they have the genocide weapon to use against the telepaths, but if the telepaths gain power, then they may cause their own version of a genocide or a slave race. And then the other thing is, we don't know exactly what Sheridan's plan is with the telepaths that are on ice, but apparently that's really bad also. Like everyone's going to very extreme measures here and breaking the rules of war.
I mean, we don't know what Sheridan's plan with the telepaths is yet, but I have to imagine it's not as bad as what Edgar's plan was. I have to imagine if you compare it to that, it's better than that.
It sounds like it's going to be a bit unethical, but I guess if you're the lesser of two evils.
I think what's interesting, because you talk about like how both sound terrible. It's very important to note though that it is only a small portion of like each side. If you're thinking about just telepaths and normals, Psychor
owns a lot of them.
Yeah, but because legally they have to be associated with them. But the Psychor, the core part of Psychor that's doing all the nasty shit, is relatively a small part. And likewise, from the normal side of people, Edgars and the people who are doing these dastardly things to try and control telepaths are a relatively small part as well. And I think the important thing in there is like to compare it to something like, say, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, where you want both sides to get along, you're rooting for peace, but fundamentally there's some extreme parties on both ends that will never accept that and have to like fight to control the other or kill the other even.
I mean, both sides isn't even really correct, because there's more than two sides in this. There's also the Sheridan Babylon 5 side of things, but they're also like, the three parties that are having this sort of civil war is, they're all going to extreme measures and things that are borderline ethical or just straight up unethical. fight. So I mean, we don't know what the plan is. We only know Franklin's reaction, which is this sucks, but it's the only way.
Yeah. But I think it is important again that this isn't everyone. This isn't all the normal people. This isn't all the telepaths. Because Lita is horrified by what the other telepaths do.
Just all the ones involved in the war. Or this possible civil war, whatever's happening.
But I think the reason why it's important to really make it clear that this is only small parts of each side is that scene with Lita in particular makes it very clear that there's a lot of telepaths that are victims to the system that Psy-Corps engage in. And we've seen examples of this throughout the entire show. Ivanova's mother, obviously Talia got eventually like dissected and used like a puppet, much like Garibaldi to kind of get used there. So all this plays out, and Garibaldi being so upset at that what happened to Talia is like this really nasty bit of foreshadowing now in hindsight. When I watch this show again in the future, I'm going to get to that and go, oh no, like because it's kind of a setup for this. It's kind of a tease for this.
Even the episode where Garibaldi and like Bester are kind of being friendly to each other because they're helping each other out. Maybe he was just taking notes on Garibaldi's character and what his insecurities were and exploit them.
That's a good point. Yeah, like I think maybe if you watch that episode again and you think about, because when he's explaining to Garibaldi like why he was chosen for this, it's like, well, the Shadows knew that Sheridan's replacement would either be you, Ivanova, or Delenn, and because of your shady past, you seemed like the one that could be converted or be easier to manipulate. And that's like that part's got to prey on him. The idea that, oh, you're the easier one to manipulate, which is why you were chosen. Like how does that not sit unsettlingly with you?
Yeah, totally.
It has to. So so I this was a tragedy of an episode because it just made me because Garibaldi all season, because he's been kind of weird and to the point where he's intentionally a little bit out of character, where it comes off a little jarring at times, but you know there's something went on with his head, so there's a reason for it, but you're constantly feeling like, I want to like Garibaldi, but he's been really unlikable. This episode takes all of that and just makes you feel bad for him, and it just gives you this gut punch for it, and that's really impressive.
Yeah, plus we had to watch, Sheridan get beat up by a bunch of guys. That was also kind of depressing.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then he's in this plain cell, and we hear the ISN reporter talking about how he's been treated well, and he's starting to see the error of his ways.
Well, we hear a lot of propaganda from the other side from Person and Clark's side of things, because even in the opening is Sheridan asking why aren't people standing down? Like, they have no way to win. They should just surrender. And it's because, well, surrendering is a worse option according to President Clark.
Yeah, you'll all be killed in replacement of Barry, and it's not until what's his face?
The Agamemnon also.
No. I mean, the captain from the previous episode. Who was the actor again? Richard Grant. That was the one.
Richard Grant. Yeah.
Richard Grant speaks up and says, "No, I'm someone who surrendered, and I'm here with my ship. It's pretty good. It's not too bad." So,
kind of nice not having to, kill your brothers and sisters.
Yeah. So that convinces them to stand down at the start of the episode, and then the the Sheridan's old ship comes in.
The Agamemnon.
I'm never going to remember how to say that. So that comes back in, and the crew and the captain are very loyal to Sheridan. They make that very clear quite quickly, and so. And that's the thing, the ISN report at the end says, oh, this should have the rebellion unraveling. And of course we see Ivanov no, we're still going. We're doing this in honor of Sheridan now, and the entire fleet is still advancing towards
Now he's a
Earth.
martyr. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's exciting stuff. Obviously, Delenn's back in the station. We just see her briefly, although she does have that one moment when Sheridan gets taken. Do you know that moment in Home Alone where the mum sort of wakes up and goes, "Kevin," right? It's basically that moment, but for Sheridan, where she realizes something's happened. She's left him home alone.
You're right. Actually, it is kind of similar.
It's that shot. It's that sitting up into frame and yelling the name.
Yeah, I was wondering if they have some sort of Katra shared since they made love. She could sense when he's in danger now.
Yeah, and poor Lanier's just hearing woohoo at random intervals when he's walking around. He's just getting in the way.
He doesn't know how to interpret the signal, like who was actually the call of danger.
he sits down, he's going to enjoy his lunch, and then he just hears woohoo and he doesn't want to eat anymore. He's like...
It's tradition.
Yeah.
He knows the risk.
Some traditions shouldn't happen. the things being traditions are not a good reason to do them. I'll put that out there. So I really loved all the Garibaldi stuff in this.
Oh yeah, totally. It's a very good episode.
Really loved it. Obviously the ex, Edgar's wife, he warns her to leave, and then she's not around after the Psycho's been in and killed Edgars and that. So she's currently missing. I suspect we'll see her pop up, but she's around somewhere. But yeah, that's possible redemption, and that's the thing, because I think we speculated an episode or two ago about, like, maybe G'Kar will stick up for Garibaldi or something, and I can definitely see that being a case where he'll maybe be like a character witness, or maybe like if Ivanova is still hell bent on just being like, not wanting to listen to him, wanting to just punish him, maybe not quite kill him, maybe she'll cool down a little bit on that side of things, but I can see G'Kar, and maybe even Londo, maybe both of them together, like stepping in and saying, no, Mr. Garibaldi is an honorable man, and we believe him in what he's saying.
Yeah, he's burnt a lot of bridges, but I don't think he's burnt any with those two characters.
No, I mean,
maybe
so
once they watch the news, maybe it'll be different, and they hear the shoot on sight order directly from Ivanova. Maybe that'll change their mind. But yeah, he could. I mean, I'm sure he has a way to use a secret channel to get past security. He was the security chief. He might be able to get through to them privately.
Well, I'm not even thinking he gets to them privately first. I'm just thinking there's like a public, scenario where they're giving it. Sheridan and Ivanova are giving out to him, and they stick up for him. Like they, publicly stand up and say no, like you will give him a fair chance or something. Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, he's probably going to save Sheridan first.
Yeah. I suspect that's what, since he's on Mars and he probably feels insanely guilty about it. He's probably going to try and do that. So
I was a little disappointed to see Walter Koenig's name in the opening credits, just because I knew who was going to sit down right away. It seemed like a little bit like they were trying to be like, oh, who is this mysterious person sitting with Garibaldi now? But like, I know it's Bester.
I actually was wondering for a minute. Obviously, it was very clear by the end that he was just really there. But when he first sat down, I was wondering, is this just in his head? Like, is he just like telepathically, like projecting to him?
That would be interesting if that were the case, especially since the wife, his ex-girlfriend, was on the train just moments before.
Yeah, part of me even thought is like he just sort of like getting into her head and speaking through her, and we're just seeing, what Garibaldi's seeing now. Kind of thing, but he is really there because the rest of the way it plays out with the gun and stuff.
Well, yeah, he wants to like shoot him and stuff, so
it's very clear that he is just there. But for a second, it's because it was shot in such a kind of like cool, like, again, much like the bar fight scene. This had a kind of a distinct feel to it. This scene that I don't think we've had that much of in the show.
No, there's definitely some extra flair and style in this one.
Yeah, there was the close-ups, very shadowy around. Garibaldi's head felt like it was almost floating in the darkness at certain points. But I enjoyed this explanation, and just everything, and just how vile it is what they've done to Garibaldi, which makes us convinced that no, something has to be done about Bester and Psycho that are doing all this malicious stuff. But the answer is not the controlled slave labor of all telepaths. That is not the answer. So it's trying to find the ethical solution, or as close to possible in the middle, that doesn't completely just screw one side, because that's the thing, it's like this belief that there will eventually be a war and that eventually telepaths will win because they're the superior ones. In fact, we sort of joked that this was kind of like an X-Men thing, where obviously there's the evil telepaths that are wanting to take control, and then there's the others that are quite good. They used the word homo superior, which if you go back and read the early X-Men comics, that's what Magneto said all the time. He referred to the mutants as Homo superior, and so that
maybe
was
it's maybe JMS is a fan.
Maybe that was an intentional little pull. So yeah. Because I assumed when I read those issues of X-Men that was like, because it sounded a bit goofy, and I thought, that just sounds like they've made it up for the comic. So I'm not sure if this is confirming to me, or that actually is a term that comes from something, like some, science, on a scientific level, that word is used to describe some, like a theoretical thing, or if this is just a reference to the X-Men and it is just a made up word. I'm not sure.
Maybe. Whatever next evolution of man is going to be Homo superior.
Homo superior.
If we make it there.
But what's after that though? Like Homo ultimate?
Homo supreme.
Homo supreme. There you go. Oh dear. Yeah. I hope YouTube doesn't like detect this conversation and think we're saying like we're talking about like using homo in the gay sense and make it think it sounds like a really dodgy conversation.
I don't suspect it will, no.
I don't know. YouTube's all detect. It's a little wonky. But yeah. But yes. So yeah, loved all that stuff. As far as the rest of it is just kind of cutting to Franklin and Alita. We should mention they've got all these telepaths and all the frozen telepaths with them, and Resistance Lady's not too happy that Lita's there because she's a telepath. Partially because the hardcore like Psy-Corps telepaths are going around like using their abilities and just completely frying like members of her group, her resistance, which is what leads to the conversation about what she saw when she was a rookie before she transferred to commercial work. And
poor Lita can't catch a break.
I know. Yeah, Lee's
can't even have a nice meal.
Lee's another character I just feel bad for all the time now, and it was kind of the same with Talia and Ivanova's mother. Like, it really does. Yeah, like Psy-Corps as it is does have to be dealt with. So fascinating. If nothing else, this episode really accents the conflict that we're currently in, because we have there's two key conflicts going on here. There is taking back control of Earth from Clark and everything he's doing, which is kind of separate from Psy-Corps. Obviously, it's tangentially related in the sense that he's giving more power to Psy-Corps because of what he's doing. But the Psy-Corps and then the people who are worried about telepaths is kind of a separate. There's like two separate kind of ongoing things at once.
Does Bester's love? Is she still a frozen popsicle telepath? I
believe so. Yeah.
So they still have her. So that might be some leverage.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. Like, I don't know if they brought every telepath with them, and if they did does that include her? Like, or did they leave her behind for, leverage, like you
collateral
say, or something? Yeah, or is she one of the ones that are there on Mars? And because maybe that's some Bester might even like censor it some if she is there.
Yeah, maybe.
Walking down the corridor, and he's just like, my true love.
Or however they have to use them in this. Borderline ethical way, might either cause him to stop what he's doing or get even more angry. I'm not sure.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. Anything else for this episode you want to touch on?
I don't think so. I mean, it's a pretty good episode. I'm very happy with it. Very excited about the next one. So much happened in this one. It was, very, very much an adrenaline rush to watch. I'm like, oh yeah, we are wrapping up this season. And, at the time they thought it was the series. So these are pretty intense episodes. You
definitely get the feeling, the big story after the Shadow War is like Clark, the Psy-Corps, and all this conflict is only going to get worse after the war was over. And it does feel like we're going through it a little bit quickly, but that can be forgiven given we know the circumstances. But
right.
I think this last 3 episodes have all been really great, and I think I was enjoying what it was doing, but it was kind of like having to establish things again after the war was over. But these last 3 episodes have been kind of like, oh, these have been the 3 best since the war ended, and.
Yeah, I mean, really, honestly, once the war ended, I was getting a little bit bored with the show. Not that I didn't like the characters or anything, but like a lot of the storylines, I'm just like, all right, well, we'll see where this leads. I wasn't like as excited to talk about them, but the Shadows War was a pretty big deal, so it's okay to have, ebbs and flows and excitement.
Yeah. But I think this conflict with the telepaths and everything that Sheridan's doing these last few episodes have really added a lot. And, Garibaldi's been such a... Like, they spent a long time, like, him doing his PI thing and kind of, like, establishing this new version of Garibaldi. But it's these last couple episodes where it got really good and really interesting, and, like, how it's now playing off these other characters and the possibilities of what his relationships are now with certain other characters, given what has happened to him now, is fascinating to, like, think about and see play out. And the good news is that there's a whole season 5 for him to maybe rebuild some bridges back up again. When the dust is settled, because, like, Ivanov is pissed now, but I mean, I know Ivanov is not going to be there to reconcile in season 5, but other characters will have a chance to reconcile with him over time.
I don't think he's going to be part of the wedding party.
The wedding party? Oh, for Delenn and Sharon. I thought you meant Cole and Ivanov. I was like, that's really nihilistic from you.
Why would I think that?
Because you keep making jokes about how it's inevitable that Cole and Ivanova are going to...
Well, I mean, I think definitely the writing's been, they've been sprinkling in some stuff. I don't know how they would have time to have a relationship now. I don't know if that's going to happen. There might be, like, a big reveal of, the big confession from Marcus Cole. I can't believe I said Marcus.
Oh, the comments are going to have a field day with that. You accidentally said it the way they want you to say it.
Yeah. I think you did too earlier.
I think I did once too, yeah. Maybe they're finally...
It's working.
They're finally getting through to us, and now I'm going to be more adamant than ever that his name is Cole and nothing but.
Right, so anyway, I expect a big confession, and then that's why Ivanova leaves the show.
That's your head canon. That's why she left. As Cole said, "I'm in love with you, Ivanova,"
and it's too awkward now.
F that. Go. Off I go.
I'd like to request a transfer.
And season 5 is just this tension every episode where Bridge Boy looks over at Cole and is like, "You bastard, chased her away."
Or just an empty chair.
She was here. I got to spend time with Ivanova every day. It's been the best years of my life, and it's gone because you chased Ivanova away.
Bridge Boy's so great.
He's the low-key MVP. It's not that, I mean, honestly, like, I know we're getting, like, another character who comes in, but it would be really funny to me if, much like Zach got promoted to, like, security chief, if Bridge Boy became the new Ivanova. And he's
now hosting Bab TV.
Hi everyone, this is Bridge Boy live from Babylon 5.
That'd be great.
But quality.
I don't think I have anything else about the episode.
Yeah, I think that's it. But no, I love the main stuff. And it was a very focused episode because everything kind of fed into what was going on, and I like as well that obviously Sheridan felt equally like it was his episode until he got captured, and then it all became about Garibaldi because it really is his episode. And given, like, the devastating kind of conclusion to this, like, part of his story, I cannot wait to see him functioning as the real Garibaldi now next episode. Or maybe they'll hold it for an episode. We won't see him. We'll just hear about maybe something that he's doing until we get to see him properly again. Maybe that'll, like, help it build up for us a little bit. But maybe we'll get reactions to what's airing in ISN, because they're actually saying, yes, Michael Garibaldi's a hero of the people. He turned in Sheridan, like,
yeah.
I wonder if we do get reactions to that. Maybe, like, Londo just stand up because pish posh, I don't believe a word of it. I don't know.
Well, they do know it's fake news.
They do know it's a bunch of bullshit. So there you go. That is Face of the Enemy, episode 17 of season 4. Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments. You can like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. And if you want to support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. Sorry.
keep going.
You can support us for as little as $1 per month. Get some bonuses for your trouble. At $5 gets you early access to the show by 6 days. Plus you get bonuses for other things. So there you go. That is everything. And since I did that part, Tara can take us home.
Yes. Thank you for watching. And keep watching Babylon 5. Just don't give away the home world.